In our headlines on this Monday, April 20th, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung and his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi sit down for their summit in New Delhi today to touch upon a wide array of bilateral interests, ranging from trade to technology. Meanwhile, a U.S. diplomatic delegation is heading to Pakistan for peace talks with its Iranian counterpart on Tuesday local time amid heightened tensions in the waters of the Middle East as the U.S. seizes an Iranian-flagged cargo ship. And today, April 20th, South Korea marks a day for people with disabilities dedicated to raising awareness about their presence in society and the need for broader action against the discrimination they encounter. We start our newscast today in New Delhi, where President Lee Jae-myung and his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi sat down for their summit. For details, I have my colleague Yoon Jung-min stand by live. Jung-min, it's great to have you on. Do start us off.
Hi, Sunny. President Lee was given a grand welcome by India's leaders at the presidential palace. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and ceremonial head of state Draupadi Murmu received the South Korean first couple this morning. President Lee Jae-myung appeared in a tie representing the colors of India's national flag. Lee and Modi together planted a tree called Asoka, meaning peace in Sanskrit.
한국과 인도가 잘 살아도 I hope that Korea and India may grow together.
Before the talks, President Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung laid a wreath at the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial in Delhi to show their respect for the Indian spiritual leader's spirit of nonviolence and peace.
Meanwhile, Jung-min, what issues appear to be topping this latest summit?
A host of issues, Sunny, including energy supply chains as the Middle East conflict drags on. And we just heard the leaders address the joint presser, and also high on the agenda are AI, critical minerals, the defense industry, and shipbuilding. President Lee and Prime Minister Modi are focusing on the Korea-India Special Strategic Partnership. The bilateral trade pact is also a key focus as negotiations are in the works to upgrade the pact, aiming to expand trade volume to $50 billion by 2030. Take a listen.
인도는 단순한 소비 시장이 아니라 이제는 글로벌 생산과 공급망을 이끄는 핵심 국가가 되었습니다. 그리고 앞으로 더욱 성장할 것입니다. 중동 전쟁의 여파 속에서 공급망 불안정과 글로벌 경제 위기가 상시화되고 있기 때문에 한국과 인도는 서로에게 가장 중요한 전략적 파트너가 될 것입니다.
In a written interview with local media, President Lee said South Korea will work together with India to secure the Strait of Hormuz, as the security of maritime routes is essential for the survival of the two nations. India is a large market with a population of more than 1.4 billion people and is a major global economic power. South Korea sees India as a key partner in the global south at this critical time. Sunny?
All right, Jung-min, thank you for the coverage of the president's meeting with his Indian counterpart. That was our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reporting live from New Delhi. Also, on the international front, U.S. authorities have seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship that President Donald Trump says was evading his blockade. Our Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
Motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
That was the U.S. Navy intercepting the Iranian-flagged cargo ship Tuska in the Gulf of Oman. In a post on Truth Social, U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that American forces seized the vessel Sunday after ignored warnings and attempted to breach the U.S. naval blockade. The incident comes as a fragile two-week ceasefire nears its expiration midweek. Iran has strongly condemned the seizure. An Iranian military spokesperson labeled the move armed piracy and claimed Tehran retaliated by launching a drone attack on a U.S. warship. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson took to social media on Sunday to call the U.S. naval blockade an act of aggression, a breach of the UN Charter, and collective punishment against the Iranian population. In response to the continued blockade, the naval arm of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced it is following through on earlier warnings and closing the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz. The diplomatic path forward remains uncertain. A White House official confirmed that a U.S. delegation, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, is expected to travel to Islamabad, Pakistan. President Trump told Fox News that meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, potentially extending into Wednesday. However, Iran's Tasnim news agency reports that Tehran will not send a delegation. Iranian officials say formal negotiations cannot occur while the U.S. blockade remains in place, though indirect exchanges have continued in recent days through a Pakistani intermediary. While President Trump has threatened to destroy Iranian power plants and bridges if talks fail, he also struck a more optimistic tone in an interview with Axios, stating a basic framework for a deal is in place and completion is highly likely. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Security, meanwhile, has been heightened in Pakistan as the country prepares to host a second round of peace talks on Tuesday local time between the U.S. and Iran. Our Ian Jin reports.
Ahead of upcoming talks between U.S. and Iran, Pakistani authorities imposed a security lockdown in Islamabad and the garrison city Rawalpindi on Sunday. Major roads are being closed, public transportation suspended, and luxury hotels have been ordered to evacuate. Private, public, and goods transport services have been temporarily halted as a precaution aimed at maintaining law and order during the sensitive period. Rawalpindi is not only an important transport hub for Islamabad, but is also home to Noor Khan Air Base, where the U.S. delegation landed during the first round of U.S. Iran talks. According to Pakistan's English-language daily Express Tribune, some areas are completely closed to all types of traffic and are under drone surveillance and expanded CCTV monitoring. Rawalpindi police have been placed on high alert, with more than 10,000 personnel deployed across the city and over 600 checkpoints set up. U.S. President Donald Trump said in a Truth Social post on Sunday that U.S. representatives will be in Pakistan on Monday for negotiations. The White House confirmed on Sunday that U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance will lead the delegation. Special Envoy for the Middle East Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner are also part of the U.S. negotiating team. It's been reported that senior officials and experts have arrived at Noor Khan Air Base on 3 special U.S. aircraft and have been escorted under heavy security to 5-star hotels. But Iran's official news agency IRNA said on Sunday that Tehran has rejected taking part in the second round of the peace talks with the United States, and said excessive U.S. demands and unreasonable, unrealistic requests, repeated changes in positions, and continued contradictory statements had so far prevented progress in the negotiations, and that there was no clear prospect for productive talks under such conditions. There have been no official statement on the schedule of Tehran's delegation for the second round of talks. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
Across the border, North Korea engaged in additional acts of animosity this past weekend with yet another ballistic missile test. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung covers its latest launch.
North Korea says it has successfully test-launched a short-range surface-to-surface ballistic missile equipped with a cluster-type warhead. According to the North Korean Central News Agency on Monday, the regime carried out the test launch the previous day on April 19th to evaluate the power of the cluster bomb warhead and fragmentation mine warhead mounted on the upgraded tactical ballistic missile Hwasong-11 Ra. The regime leader Kim Jong-un expressed great satisfaction while inspecting the launch at the test site, accompanied by his daughter Chue. North Korea launched 5 Hwasong-11 Ra missiles from the Sinpo area in Hamgyong-namdo province, with photos showing the missile striking a target area near an island about 136 kilometers away, a high-density 12.5 to 13-hectare area, equivalent in size to about 18 soccer fields. Similar cluster bomb warhead tests had been conducted between the 6th and 8th of this month when the regime tested dispersal warheads for the Hwasong-11 Ra, but this marks the first time launch images have made public.
A 136 kilometers range is to pressure the Seoul metropolitan area and the U.S. base in Pyongyang. Cluster munitions act like shotgun-style submunitions, spreading from a point over a wide area, targeting bases, airfields, or even deploying lethal mines.
While saying that the development and deployment of various types of cluster bomb warheads would more effectively meet the operational needs of the military, Kim Jong-un emphasized the need to acquire and update to ultra-modern technologies that are necessary for the combat preparedness. Meanwhile, regarding the regime's missile launch, the Joint Chiefs of Staff said they are looking into the missile specifications along with the U.S. and urged the regime to halt the provocations.
The launch clearly violates UN Security Council resolutions. North Korea must immediately halt its repeated provocations and engage in efforts to promote peace on the Korean peninsula.
The National Security Office on Sunday also expressed concerns over North Korea's increasingly frequent ballistic missile launches and urged an immediate halt to such actions. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
President Rhee Chang-yong, that is, has pledged to build a country where difference does not lead to discrimination. In a Facebook post on Monday to mark the Day of Persons with Disabilities, he vowed to ensure that disability does not deter opportunities in culture, education and employment. He noted that he was aware of these hurdles firsthand, having been left with an arm deformity due to a factory accident as a teenager. South Korea has observed the Day of Persons with Disabilities on April 20th since 1981. Up next, we take a look at efforts within companies here to build an inclusive environment for workers with disabilities. Our Cho Young-eun files this report.
One employee steps forward to explain how they use an online system to track their daily routines, independently managing their attendance. Soon after, workers move into their respective sectors, receiving clear safety and logistic instructions. Each employee is provided with customized maps featuring photos and simple diagrams. They use their outstanding skills to memorize subway maps to do delivery services by subway. As they pack their assigned cookies and bread into delivery boxes, they head out with a sense of purpose to complete the day's tasks.
When we go out together, the day feels really enjoyable. I'm grateful that this place has allowed me to keep going for 10 years. I'm thankful I've been able to work here for so long.
At this workplace, tasks are carefully redesigned to match individual abilities, allowing employees with developmental disabilities to work efficiently. Tasks such as cutting packaging, assembling boxes, and preparing goods are broken down into clear and manageable steps. Customized tools such as acrylic cutting frames for trimming flowers have been developed based on employee feedback.
I started working here through a recommendation from my school teacher. It's very fun, active, and I really like it. I've been here for about 2 years. I want to keep working hard here for 10 or even 20 years.
In Korea, companies are required to hire a certain portion of people with disabilities. Yet only 30.5% of people with developmental disabilities were employed as of June 2024. At this company, more than 80% of employees have disabilities, and it works with other organizations through Korea's indirect employment support system.
If jobs and environments are well designed to fit people with developmental disabilities, and if they are supported by understanding colleagues, more opportunities can be created, allowing them to grow and achieve results alongside us as members of society.
By transforming employment into one of collaboration and workplace accommodation, this presents a new standard for businesses and a more inclusive society. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Bank of Korea Governor Rhee Chang-yong ends his term in office today. And ahead of his departure, he took time to share his thoughts about the country's monetary policy over the past 4 years as he navigated a global pandemic and dramatic political transitions. Our Kim Jun-hong reports.
Bank of Korea Governor Rhee Chang-yong wrapped up his 4-year term on Monday. Reflecting on the past years at a farewell ceremony, Rhee described his tenure as a period of unexpected shocks.
Over the past 4 years, a series of unexpected shocks has kept our economy under constant strain.
Rhee took office during the COVID-19 pandemic and went through a period of political transition, serving under 3 presidents in 4 years. As global inflation surged following the Russia-Ukraine war, he responded with 2 unprecedented big-step rate hikes of 0.5 percentage point each, pushing the benchmark rate to 3.5%. Aggressive rate hikes helped South Korea return inflation to the 2% target range ahead of many major economies, which Rhee cited as one of the most meaningful achievements of his tenure.
I'm proud we were able to bring inflation back to the 2% target range earlier than many major central banks.
Uncertainty continued even after that, both at home and abroad. From the martial law crisis to shifting U.S. trade policies and the outbreak of the U.S. Iran war, the policy environment remained challenging. With rate cuts constrained by a weaker currency and inflation, and hikes limited by slowing growth, the Monetary Policy Board, led by Rhee, kept rates on hold at 2.5% for 11 months in a row. Despite criticism over the prolonged pause, Rhee told reporters that holding rates steady was also a deliberate policy choice. As a final message, he pointed to the limits of monetary and fiscal policy.
The influence of monetary and fiscal policy is diminishing amid structural changes in the economy, yet public expectations for policymakers remain high. This is widening the gap between the two.
This showed that policy measures alone are no longer sufficient to ensure economic stability and growth, highlighting the need for deeper structural reforms. The nominee for the next Bank of Korea Governor Shin Hyun-song is set to begin his term once confirmed by the National Assembly. With Middle East tensions raising inflation risks and keeping the Korean won volatile, Shin is expected to face a tough start. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
And we are counting down about 6 weeks to the local elections, and capital Seoul is looking to be a key battleground for the country's 2 major political parties. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin explains.
The race for Seoul's mayor has taken shape as a two-way contest between ruling Democratic Party candidate Chung Won-ho and incumbent Mayor Oh Se-un from the main opposition People Power Party. The matchup was finalized after Oh was confirmed as the conservative candidate on April 18th, and Chung secured his party's nomination earlier on April 9th. Chung, the former head of Seongdong-gu district, pledged to defend democracy with citizens and build a fairer, more transparent Seoul. Oh, who is seeking a 3rd consecutive term, framed the election as a check on the current administration, saying efforts are needed to ensure voters express meaningful judgment. Both sides have been engaging in sharp rhetoric, casting the election either as a stepping stone in broader political ambitions or a referendum on the current government. Public opinion has been divided, with some voters expecting Chung to bring change to city governance, while others favoring Oh's continuing leadership. Voters' decisions will be especially key in swing districts along the Han River, including Yongsan-gu and Mapogu district, where voting patterns have historically fluctuated between parties. Seoul is seen as one of the most critical battlegrounds, with 3 major variables likely to shape the outcome: President Lee Jae-myung's approval rating, public sentiment on real estate issues, and the degree of conservative voter consolidation. Among these, the president's approval rating is considered to be a decisive factor, particularly as this election marks the first nationwide vote since a change in administration. With official campaigns to kick off next month, candidates will continue to sway voters, especially in key swing districts. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. In the U.S., a gunman in Shreveport, Louisiana, has shot and killed 8 children. Police say the suspect opened fire across 3 separate residences just after 6 a.m. Sunday in a domestic disturbance. He then carjacked a vehicle and fled before police shot and killed him during the chase. The children killed were aged between 1 and 14 years old, and some of the children were related to the shooter.
Shreveport City's mayor called it the worst tragedy the city has ever seen. A Russian-born man opened fire on pedestrians with an automatic rifle in Kyiv on Saturday, killing 6 people and wounding 14. The shooter then barricaded himself in a supermarket with hostages, where police shot him dead after a 40-minute standoff. 8 people remain in hospital on Sunday, including a child whose both parents were killed in the shooting. Footage from the incident showed police officers running away from the shooter, causing the head of Ukraine's patrol police to resign in disgrace. Ukraine's interior minister said that the attacker's mental state was clearly unstable and called for a full investigation. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani and New York Governor Kathy Hochul on Wednesday jointly proposed a new annual surcharge on second homes in the city worth more than $5 million. The measure, targeting roughly 13,000 properties, is expected to generate $500 million a year to help close a projected $5.4 billion budget gap. Mamdani called it a, quote, important step, pointing to properties, including the $238 million Central Park penthouse owned by Citadel founder Ken Griffin, as examples of ultra-luxury real estate sitting largely empty while average New Yorkers struggle with affordability. Pro-Russian former President Rumen Radev scored a landslide victory in Bulgaria's election on Sunday, with exit polls showing his Progressive Bulgaria party taking 44% of the vote. The conservative GERB party took 12.5% of the votes in a result that could reshape the EU members' foreign policy. Radev, a Eurosceptic former fighter pilot who opposes military support for Ukraine, has called for resuming the flow of Russian oil and gas into Europe and has rode a wave of public anger over corruption, political instability, and the rising cost of living since Bulgaria adopted the euro in January. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Despite it being mid-April, an unseasonal cold wave advisory has been issued. The advisory will take effect from 9 p.m. today in the southern mountainous areas of Gangwon-do Province, as well as Gongju and Kumsan cities in Chungcheong-namdo Province and Muju County in Jeollabuk-do Province. Starting today, the unusually warm conditions, which arrived nearly 2 months early, will ease. Seoul's daytime high, which had been close to 30 degrees Celsius, will drop by around 10 degrees from yesterday. Meanwhile, dry weather alerts across central areas may continue. Air quality will worsen again tomorrow. Dust from overseas carried by northwesterly winds will push levels higher nationwide. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 6 degrees, Chuncheon at 3 degrees, Daegu at 6 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 19 degrees, Daejeon at 20 degrees, Busan at 19 degrees. Looking ahead, typical conditions for this time of year will continue, with large day-to-night temperature differences. Rain is expected in southern regions and on Jeju Island on Thursday.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session, so do stay with us and thank you for now.